Good morning and a very warm welcome from my side for today's webinar introducing the Neo4j service offering to help you understand and also help you in general how to make your graph database project successful. My name is Angelika Stefan Kolmer and I'm managing the professional service and pre-sales for Neo4j. In case you are not aware about Neo4j as a company, here are some highlights. We are meanwhile around 175 employees backed by solid funding. Nearly a decade of product maturity and usage of our graph database made us the market leader, being 100% focused on graphs. The product Neo4j is written from the ground up for graphs. Around hundreds of the world's largest businesses run on the native Neo4j graph database. We are the creator of Neo4j, a highly scalable native graph database. Neo4j gives any organization the ability to leverage in real-time connections within the data to create value for the business. Our core belief is the connections between the data are as important as the data itself. Therefore, they need to be first-class citizens in the data sheet, in the database. And actually, what we see in the enterprise is that the enterprise is adopting the graph more and more from connected enterprises where the information about employee, customers, partners, products, and support is available in a 360-degree view to a digital mesh connecting all kinds of information to the Internet of Things, to general knowledge networks. Actually, it is all about having data available in such a way that you can leverage the connections between all data or related data. You may ask yourself, how does this graph database thing now compare with traditional relational technologies? There are different approaches of representing data. So relational databases have been established and they are good for well understood data structures that do not change too frequently. They serve for known problems involving discrete parts of the data, often with very minimal connectivity. A good example of that is an OLTP system supporting an ATM machine. It is all about handling in a secure way the transaction to reduce or increase the bank account for a specific customer, right? Not more, not less. On the other hand, if we look at graph databases, they are ideally suited for dynamic systems where the data topology is difficult to predict. Dynamic requirements need to be implemented frequently, evolving with the business. The relationship in the data contains meaning and value. As an example, social networks where the relationship is friend of has a meaning and where new relationships can be introduced on demand, and a specific relationship can be changed on the fly. An example is friend of can change into is no longer friend of, right? So should that be needed. So having said all of that, what different approaches and skill sets are then required to adopt Neo4j as a graph database? First of all, the graph data modeling is very different to relational concepts. It is not anymore about entity relationship models with physical and logical databases. Data querying is different. Instead of joining in the relational concept, it is about traversing a graph. All the relationships are already materialized in the native graph database. Agile development approaches can be used as the graph allows to dynamically add all kinds of new data and put them into relationship with existing data without the need to change a schema. As schema changes in relational models have massive impacts on huge amounts of your data, that is not an issue in graph concepts anymore. The architecture can follow new approaches by providing the ability to act as a data layer connecting all different data. Data loading needs new approaches. Stored procedures in Neo4j called APOCs can be implemented to add new graph-based functionality into the database. Performance tuning has different aspects now due to a new technology. And of course, there are new operational aspects, including implementing high availability and horizontal scalability. Data modeling in general with graph database is intuitive and straightforward. Business users without database and IT knowledge can intuitively describe their domain and businesses on a whiteboard. The whiteboard model can then be transformed into a graph data model with nodes and relationships. Querying data is different. compared to relational technology, since this is, as said, about traversing in the graph. Neo4j's declarative query language called Cypher supports the graph model and helps to become more productive, as the impact is to be faster writing queries and producing code which is easier to read. Of course, then the intermediate steps needed, debugging the queries and finding out how to improve them, will also be faster. If you look at the right-hand side, you see the same logical query using Cypher, and on the left side, how this roughly compares to an SQL join. This altogether results in improved performance for highly connected data, where relational concepts become more complex with increased number of joins, showing an exponential increase in response times for joins going beyond, let's say, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 tables. Neo4j traverses already materialized connections, and it simply follows pointer internally. Hence, it is by far faster to find your friend's 4th grade traversing in a graph compared what you would do in a relational model, joining 4 times a table. If we compare then the different approaches, we can state the following. With Neo4j, the data modeling gets more intuitive, querying the data gets more intuitive and less complex. Agile development approaches can be implemented and provide quicker and faster results. With architecture, data loading, stored procedures, performance tuning, and the operational aspects, the new skill set and complexity needed depends on the complexity of the use case. If we now compare this with the relational database and with the relational world, we can state that generally speaking, data model is by far more complex by using entity relationship model, logical, physical data models. Data querying can get easily very complex, as you've seen on the last slide, causing then also high effort on performance tuning, debugging, and so on and so on. And of course, agile development approaches are very hard to achieve when you need to, first of all, define a super complex logical data model corporate-wide before you start to implement a use case, because otherwise changes are hard, right? So if on the last slide the conclusion is that everything is easier with Neo4j, does this mean all these advantages come for free? Well, not really. Not really for free. There is a need for some environmental changes. It means the project teams, architects, and developers need a change in their mindset and need to think in graphs rather than thinking relational databases. It might be the right time to rethink existing architectures and take advantage of the connected data. Just continuing the approach followed before with no changes is most likely not leading to success, as you naturally want to evolve your business, adopt new approaches such as agile development and so on. The new tools and query languages need to be understood fully so that you get the best out of them. As a result, you will get a new operational environment with new options you can take advantage of, such as the graph algorithms, which help you to do meaningful analysis on your data, or you can implement graph-based functionality. So then, who can help you going this journey? There are many options, but 2 of them I would like to highlight today. Neo4j has a graph ecosystems with Neo4j partners ready and trained to design, model, and implement with you your graph project. An alternative you see on the left side. As you see here, Neo4j has significantly invested in building up a field engineering team, which is meanwhile over 35 experienced and senior employees in worldwide field services. Neo4j offers a broad range of services for our customers as well as for our partners, starting from trainings to hand over knowledge to you, doing proof of concepts and boot camps with customers, to generic Neo4j and graph database services to kickstart projects. And after the project started, we also offer expert services, we do health checks, and we offer technical account management to ensure success. Neo4j is also prepared to offer prime responsibility for projects. Let's look a little bit more into the details. Going here into the details of the training, Neo4j offers 5 training classes. Each of them can be run as a single self-contained training in 1 day each. These trainings are the fundamentals training to get the broad overview of what the Neo4j product does and how, the data modeling training, which is more specific about Neo4j graph database modeling techniques, advanced Cypher to get in-depth training on the query language, operational and deployment to set up cluster and operate the database, as well as a training on recommendations to learn how recommendations can be done using Neo4j. The training material itself is very mature and is continually and constantly updated over the last major and minor releases. Trainings can be held as a chargeable service at your customer offices or in one of our offices, or they can be arranged at another location on demand. Proof of concepts are typically done as a service together with the customer to evaluate the feasibility of Neo4j for a selected use case. Our experts are supporting a customer-specific use case by performing the typical tasks such as data modeling, data loading, querying the data, and potentially visualizing the concept and/or use case. Typically, this is done within something like 5 to 10 business days, but it can very well be customized to the specific needs and mutually agreed in a statement of work. It needs to be mentioned that due to the agile development approach, most of the times the POC is the foundation into the real project, so that the effort performing the POC is already an investment in the project itself later on. Furthermore, Neo4j offers 4 or 5 day boot camps. In this boot camp, typically the first 2 days are used for training, as the ones mentioned before, and handing over the knowledge to the customer. Then the Neo4j consultant is working with the customer on a specific sample project, setting up a demo environment, discussing a use case data model, loading the data into this model just developed, and querying against this customer sample data. This allows the customer team to quickly hit the ground running, learn the fundamentals, and create a small POC with sample data so that the project sponsor has the ability to see and communicate the potential using Neo4j in their environment. Beside the pre-built bootcamp, we also offer generic services for the evaluation phase, the development phase, as well as for the deployment phase then later on. Neo4j database core services provided include such things like data modeling, architecture design and review, Cypher query language advice, implementation and performance tuning. Data sizing and Neo4j configuration services are provided, as well as implementing and optimizing stored procedure. For integration, we can offer services for implementing data import and ETL on customer-specific visualization based on, as an example, Sigma.js, Vista.js, or D3, as well as services to jumpstart on .NET and Spring Data. Providing domain expertise with application-related services, such as for recommendations, for fraud, for IDM, IAM, etc., broaden the service portfolio available from Neo4j. These services are typically delivered as required and specified in a statement of work on a time and material per day basis together with the customer. The goal is to kickstart projects and to ensure successful deployments using the expertise of senior Neo4j consultants. We are currently preparing to bundle these services together in a packaged offer. Stay tuned. For expert services and health checks, the Neo4j field team provides in-depth Neo4j database relevant services, such as for performance tuning, optimizing configuration and settings to the specific and critical use cases, architecture review, and investigating in root cause analysis of the database functions within a full stack applications. All of these health checks and expert services are typically delivered as required and specified in a statement of work on a time and material per day basis, together with the customer, whereby the delivery can be managed by the customer or by Neo4j. The goal here is to ensure success and get the project on the right track throughout the full life cycle with a Neo4j senior consultant. Also here, we are currently preparing to bundle these services together in a packaged offers. Stay tuned. When we then continue the journey and talk about prime projects with Neo4j leading, we aim to take full responsibility of the project. Let's look a little bit deeper into the architecture on the delivery side of the services. Let's define the database core services as including training, modeling, installation, tuning, health checks, etc. This is the area Neo4j offers the services and which would be used to ensure overall success of the project. Defining, designing, and implementing application logic can also be done by Neo4j, but it can also very well be shared with a partner, with SIs or the customers. But then, of course, in a prime project, there is a variety of other services and roles to be fulfilled, which varies from project management, overall architecture work, application logic outside the graph database, operations, graphical user interfaces, and interfaces to third-party software. As one example illustrated here, Neo4j could take over the overall project management, as the responsibility is with Neo4j in a prime project, and the architecture, while as an example, the application logic, third-party interfaces, the graphical user interface, operations, etc. would be fulfilled by a partner, by an SI, or by the customer. As indicated with the blue and yellow color, you see that there are no hard boundaries between what Neo4j, a partner, or the customer would and could deliver. All of this can be discussed and should be discussed as part of a project plan in a real project case. This basically should illustrate the approach to Neo4j leading smaller to mid-sized projects within prime responsibility. Neo4j would provide the graph database expertise and project management with the goal to offer customers overall responsibility. The success of the project would be ensured by using Neo4j project management and the expertise of the Neo4j senior consultants for critical database relevant core services. As another alternative, Neo4j could also take part on a partner SI-led customer project, where the overall responsibility being in the hand of a partner or an SI. The success of the project would also be ensured by using expertise of the Neo4j senior consultants for critical database core services and supporting the partner to deliver a successful project. So then the question is, what engagements have already been delivered out of the EMEA field team in 2017? All in all, we delivered over 100 days of training. We did 17 proof of concepts EMEA-wide, and we delivered over 20 boot camps for EMEA. And more than 10 health checks have been done this year, with including architecture reviews, increased the performance of one query from minutes to microseconds, reviewed data model, and improved overall stability of the HA and cluster setup. Who is the EMEA field team? We are all in all 12 senior consultants and growing, with over 30 years of graph database experience in the team and over 100 years of background in relational database and technologies, covering over 100 opportunities and customers evaluating or using Neo4j in the past. And we delivered uncountable numbers of meetups, hackathons, trainings, webinars. 5 consultants out of the team have worked at customers in Neo4j projects before, and 6 of the consultants have enterprise architecture skills and certification. So you see that, and we have, of course, domain expertise in finance, industry, security, IDM, IAM, retail, etc. So you see that the EMEA field team is a senior consultant team where you can expect that you get a lot of experience into your project. So what lessons did we already learn in Neo4j engagements? While the graph approach and thinking and implementing in graphs is more intuitive than relational databases, it still needs training to do the right things. We see in real-world projects that reusing the relational concepts is making it very difficult, as sometimes you simply miss the chance to redesign and take full advantage of graphs. The attempt to do everything by yourself sometimes leads to failures, as the quick win, because the out-of-the-box experience from Neo4j is first class, and the steep learning curve you get from it still does not replace years of experience. actually attempt to over-engineer in the first phase of the project instead of using agile approaches is sometimes also leading to frustrations, because that is most of the time simply the approach which have been taken in relational concepts or in relational projects. And as I said before, the best way to do it is basically to rethink all the approaches and also then support the agile approach, because Neo4j as a database is supporting these new approaches. Proper sizing of the graph and using the right configuration parameters is also needed. It is, of course, also good to use the experience of other and similar projects and to get this experience into your project without you reinventing the wheel in this case. And in the end, the simple truth is that traversing the graph is blazingly fast, yes, but if you are not selective what and how to traverse, you may end in traversing the entire graph, right? And then the physics are still against you, and you compare traversing the graph, a full graph, basically with a full table scan. So in other words, this may not lead to a lot of success. So you also always want to be selective, and you always want to understand what you really need to traverse versus what not. Right? And to avoid all of that issues we have seen, I would really encourage you evaluating using Neo4j Services, which allows you to bring senior graph database experience into your project, accelerate the delivery and ensure success, and again, not reinvent the wheel. So how can you get in touch? Here are actually 3 options, but you may know more than the 3 options. But the easiest one would, of course, be get in contact with your regional Neo4j representative. You can, of course, also contact me, as you see on the email here on this screen, or find us under http://neo4j.com. Some resources you will find then later on when we share the slide decks. So the general pointer is to neo4j.com professional services. You find there basically a description also on the boot camps, on the production services and graph application services. Then, of course, there's also a pointer to our partners so that you can also, of course, look at the picture, how we work together with partners and what partner could help. Last but not least, a summary of this presentation, of this webinar. Neo4j is offering a broad range of services to ensure success, and please engage us early, right? Because we want to share our knowledge, of course, and we want to enjoy your success. And in the end, your success is also our success.